I now invite Ms. Beatrice Fihn, Executive Director of ICAN, to make her remarks.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary General, President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, colleagues and friends, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons has worked long and hard for this treaty to come into being. ICAN is a vibrant campaign in over 100 countries, comprised of people who act with determination, hope, and confidence. At ICAN, we knew that we would eventually get to this historic day when the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons opens for signature. And we are seeing today international law standing up against weapons of mass destruction, prohibiting the use, possession, and development of nuclear weapons. This treaty represents the determination of the survivors of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and nuclear testing around the world. And it established a legal obligation to address the harm that these weapons cause. In many countries, the victims of nuclear weapons use or testing have struggled for the full realization of their rights. Indigenous communities, already victims of social and political marginalization, have been marginalized further still by cancers, by contamination of traditional lands. Representatives of these communities spoke during the negotiations of this treaty. Their voices were heard by the states that participated in those negotiations. And even if their own governments, in shame, ignore their voices, international law is responding to those voices in the treaty signed here today. I'm very honored that we have representatives of the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki here at this ceremony today. And I know that many more who have experienced the devastating consequences of nuclear detonations are watching this ceremony from home. Thank you for the testimony you have provided, for the work that you do, and for all that you have contributed to making this treaty a reality. You ban nuclear weapons. It is a treaty that honors the struggle of victims that have died and honors the work of survivors who are struggling still. And we will continue to work together. ICAN will work with states and survivors, with international organizations and UN agencies, and with our partners across civil society to build the strength of this treaty over time. And this has not been an easy process. The treaty has been called divisive by those that still ascribe value to nuclear weapons, and many of them might try to work against this. But over time, this treaty will stand strong, because it's based on strong foundations. It is morally right, and it's coherent with the framework of international law. Important progress is rarely easy. Groundbreaking steps forward do not start with consensus agreements. There was a lot of resistance when slavery was abolished. There was plenty of opposition when women fight for the right to vote. The fights for civil rights and apartheid, for the end of apartheid, they weren't met by unanimous support by all. Progress does not just happen when everyone is ready. It must be fought for, and someone has to be brave and lead. And we are seeing that leadership here today. The states that negotiated, the states that will sign here today and over the weeks ahead, you are the states that are showing moral leadership in a time and a world that desperately needs such moral leadership today. The treaty will always be open for all states to join. States that choose to not join this treaty now will always be welcome in the future. Because today we are putting nuclear weapons in the same category as other unacceptable weapons, like the conventions prohibiting chemical and biological weapons, landmines and cluster munitions. This treaty bans an entire category of weapons. It strengthens the norm that weapons that cause unacceptable harm to civilians cannot remain legal. And today, nuclear weapons will no longer be an exception to these norms. This is what a real step looks like. And for our shared human society, this is a step for the better. Thank you.